brethren. It is very important that we go through the Word of God, especially to prepare ourselves to receive that which God has for us this season. I see a season where God is really willing to open up doors, to fulfill promises, to bring to pass all that He has promised in the past. But I know very well that if what God promises did not come to pass, it's not a function of God's inability to bring to pass what He has said. It's a function of we, human beings, failing to make use of the season. It's a failing on our side. It's not a failing on the God side. God can bring to pass anything. There's nothing difficult for Him. So when God makes a promise and you do not hear that promise, it's not because God did not make a promise. It's because you were not in the right place to hear God make His promise. And when God makes a promise and you hear the promise and the promise do not come to fulfillment, it's also not because God could not fulfill His promises. It's not because the demons in your father's house were stronger than God and God could not do it. It's not because the anointing was so low and God was needing a special anointing before He walked. No, it's because you were not in the position to receive the promise of God manifesting in your life. So this evening, by the grace of God, we want to look at, we'll take a story from the Bible, from the Old Testament. We'll look at somebody's life, how they had access to the promise of God and how they allowed it to pass. And we're going to take lessons from it, and from there, take steps concerning our own life with our walk with Christ to see how we can make best use of the promises that God has for us. So as not to take our time, I will not, might not read the whole Bible verses, but I want us to just get a grab of what happened. This is in the book of Genesis chapter 28. We want to look at verse 10 to verse 22. Genesis chapter 28 from verse 10 to verse 22. We have the story here of Jacob when he left his father's house on his way to Laban's house, and he got to a certain place, and he slept and discovered that in that place there was the presence of God, and he saw angels going up and coming down, and God was at the top of the ladder, and God said to him, that was in verse 13, and behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham thy father, and the God of Isaac. The land wherein thou liest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed. And when thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south, and in thee and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. And behold, I am with thee, and will keep thee in all the places whither thou goest, and will bring thee again to this land, for I will not leave thee until I have done that which I have spoken to thee of. So that was God speaking to Jacob, telling him, I am the God of your fathers, introducing Himself to him, and telling him, I'm going to give you this land, I'm going to be with you, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that to you. And when Jacob woke up from his sleep, Jacob said, and the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not. Okay, let's continue before I go break it down, begin to speak about what is happening here. And he was afraid, and he said, oh, what a dreadful place. This must be the house of the Lord and the gate of heaven. And so he arose the next day and took the stone that he made for his pillow and put a pillar there, then decided to give it a name and call the place Bethel. But the name of the city is actually called Luz. And Jacob vowed a vow, saying, if God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me to eat and raiment to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in peace. Then shall the Lord be my God, and this stone which I have set for a pillar shall be God's house. And of all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give thee tenth unto thee. Okay, so Jacob was running away from his father's house. He was going all the way to Laban's house, and along the way, he slept one night, and he saw God descending. He saw a ladder from heaven, and angels were descending and ascending, and God was there speaking to Jacob. Jacob had had a life of scamming people, of doing cheating others, and that was actually what chased him out of his father's house. And despite all the cheating that he has done, he did not have anything when he got to this place. He came empty-handed. All the years of scheming and cheating and everything, he still got to this place empty-handed. And God came to meet him and said, "Oh, I am with you. I am your God. I am this, because I have a covenant with your father, and I have to bring it to pass. And I have chosen to bring it to pass through you." And God said many things to Jacob. Could you note with me that when Jacob woke up, Jacob did not respond to what God has said. Jacob went on a different tangent, totally different from what God has said. God is speaking to you. God came to meet you. God never told Jacob that this is my house. He never said that. God never said to Jacob, "This place that you are staying is my house. This is my place. This is our gate." God never said that. God is trying to tell him that I have set up this place for a meeting place to meet with you. But Jacob did not see that. The religiousness of Jacob's religion did not allow Jacob to get the information that God was speaking about. Rather, Jacob was getting something totally different. Jacob was seeing a temple. All he saw was a temple. And this is the first lesson I want us to learn from here. As individuals, many times we get God wrong because we put God in perspective of our religion. We put God in perspective of our human reasoning. I remember when God called us to start working for Him, a few people saw us and they thought we were going to start a church. A lot of people saw us and they said, "Oh, I see the grace of God upon your life." But they misinterpreted it. And all they saw was a ministry. And to them, a ministry was a church. So a lot of people around us then were thinking that God has called us to start another church. And a few people came around us thinking that we were going to start a church. Whereas God never said, "Go and start a church." God said, "Start a prayer group. Gather people together." So there are two different statements. So many of us have come in contact with God, and God has given us instructions, but we have allowed religion to confuse us, and all we saw was what we wanted to see. What we heard is what we wanted to hear. Some of us, God has said, "I'm going to bless you." And because to you, blessing is just money. Blessing is just material things. So all you saw and all you heard in all God said was, "I'm going to bless you." And your blessing was just, "I'm going to have plenty cars, I'm going to have plenty houses, I'm going to have plenty this and plenty that." That was all you saw. That was all you got from what God is saying. Whereas that's not what God is saying. He's saying, "I'm going to bless you." Adam and Eve were so blessed and they were naked. So you need to put what God has said to you in perspective. And that's why when the message of God came some few days ago, I told us, if you have written it somewhere, go and dig it out. If you have told somebody about it, tell the person, "Please repeat to me what I told you so time." And don't have to read, don't remove, just say what I said. it is important that you go back to look at exactly what God has said and not what you decided to pick out of what God has said. I've seen instances where we are telling people that God is going to be with you, and they just begin to misinterpret it and give it their own personal interpretation, and so they are expecting what God never promised. God was telling this man, I will be with you. I am your God. The reason why you're seeing ladder in this land is because I want to give you this land. So I have used this to catch your attention in order to let you know that this land is your land. But when he woke up, he decided, he decided because of religion that all he was hearing and seeing was a house of God. God has told people from generation to generation that the earth is too small to be his house. God has told them in the Old Testament and repeated it through Jesus. There is no place on earth that is big enough to be the house of God. Heaven is the throne of God, and so big as heaven is not enough to contain God, that the person that was describing God even has to say that it looks as if the earth is his footstool. Why? God is so big. And he has been telling generations from beginning, I am so big, I cannot dwell in a house made of hands. But religion will not allow people to understand what God is saying. Religion will just allow people to always see and attempt to answer God concerning according to their own views and not according to what Christ is saying. God is telling him, I'm giving you this land. All he saw was a temple. All he saw was a ground, a house of God. Where did God say that in his statement? When did God say this place is my house? God never said that. He got that from his own human thinking, his impatience to listen carefully to what God is saying. Brethren, I want to state this very importantly, that it is important that we listen to God gently and simply and get whatever thing that God is speaking to us as individuals. I know God has spoken many times to many people, but unfortunately many times we have gotten our own personal meanings out of it. God has given some of us the revelations, and you have just decided to interpret it as you like. There's a sister that contacted us. She has left the group now. She joined the group not quite long then. That was in 2020, I guess. She joined the group not quite long then, and then she contacted me. And we were praying about revelations and things, and so God gave her a revelation. So she saw somebody came to her like her mother-in-law. And she dislikes her mother-in-law. And I believe that some prophets have told her that mother-in-law was her problem. So when she came to me, she was waiting for me to also agree that mother-in-law was the problem. But when she came to the revelation and I was hearing from God, God told me that He's not speaking about the mother-in-law, but rather I was speaking about the powers that came from the marriage, the family she married into. And because she herself was not born again, the power was able to do whatever they want to do in her life. So I told her, this issue is not your mother-in-law. And she started arguing with me. No, you can't tell me that. People have told me before. I said, okay, sorry, I can't help you. This is beyond me. I'm not going to validate what you are thinking. I'm going to tell you what God is telling me. So if what God is telling me is not popular, I'm not surprised. So she cut the call, and I told her to go and pray and stop. Go and beg your mother-in-law. All the nonsense you've done to your mother-in-law, go and beg her now. She didn't like what I said, so she not only cut the call and stopped calling me, she got out of the group. But that is the problem of many of us. We want to validate our human thoughts with Christ. And that's why we love some men of God, because they always validate your point. So when you go to them and say, I know my husband is a wizard, the man will say, yes, he's a wizard. Say, yes, thank you, man of God. That's what you are looking for. You are not looking to hear from God. You are not waiting to hear God himself. So whenever God speaks and it's not sounding like what you want to hear, you shut God out. And this is the problem that a lot of us are facing with God. A problem that a lot of us are facing with God. So tonight, I'm trying not to make this long, but there's so much information to be gotten here. We are looking at the life of Jacob. We are seeing him having an encounter with God and wasting it away. I mean, if I was the one in that situation, imagine God telling me, I have blessed you, I have given you this land. Then the next thing is to ask God, what do I do with the land? So what do I do? What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Because if he has taken advantage of that meeting with God, his life will have gone far more different than the way it went. Far better than the way it went. I mean, he went for a journey, and there he fell in love with the second born, and they gave him the firstborn. And such a man was marrying the elder sister and marrying the younger sister at the same time. And he left the land with the elder sister and the younger sister. But he didn't get back with both of them. One died along the way. And we now have a lot of battles going on within the families and all kind of rubbish that is happening. Why? Simply because one man had an encounter with God, and instead of him to take the maximum use of that encounter, he was running at a scatter. God met with him. Can you note with me that God was not asking for a sacrifice from Jacob? God did not tell Jacob, come and sacrifice. So these promises I'm giving you now, there is a sacrifice attached to it. God did not ask Jacob to bring a sacrifice. God just told him. God was waiting for him to agree with him that these things you have said, I agree. That's all. But he woke up, and all he was seeing was building a temple. Did God ask him and say, I need a temple? Didn't he see that in that place there was a ladder? Angels were climbing up and down. They were self-sufficient. They didn't need his help. His input was not necessary. Nobody needed the input of Jacob. Nobody needed Jacob to do anything. God has done everything that needed to be done. All they needed was the agreement of Jacob. But Jacob woke up with his religiousness and thought that the best thing he could have done in that situation was to create a stone and give it a fine name. Was that what God was asking of him? That wasn't what God was asking of him. And the next thing he was telling God was that he was coming to pay tithe. I will give you 10% of all you gave me, and I will build a temple here. I actually went to see the scriptures, and I can't find where Jacob actually gave God 10% of all he bought. I didn't see it because he got wives and children from where he went. Did he pay tithe of the children? He got fatter. His body got fatter. Did he give God 10% of that also? I didn't see where they now build temple, especially on that place. I did not see it. So he made empty promises, because God was not even waiting for the promise. And I never saw a place where God said, Jacob, I'm angry with you because you promised me 1/10, and I've been counting the 1/10. I've not seen the 1/10 complete, so I'm not happy with you. And you not build temple there, so because you not build temple, I will not accept you. Because God never asked him for those stories. God never asked him for sacrifices. God gave him information. He's supposed to accept it and begin to walk in the realization of that information. God said, I will be with you. So the next question is, God, where should I go? And God will tell you whether you should continue to Laban or not. God could have sent him somewhere else. God will have told him, okay, over there will be 2 ladies. This is the one I want you to go for. He wasted 14 years gathering 2 women. He came out and still lost one. He still came out with wasted efforts. He did everything to collect animals. The Laban tried to cheat him. He still came out with everything. But at the end of the day, what happened to the same Jacob? He lost everything. Didn't you remember that Jacob lost everything and Joseph had to take him to Egypt? When Joseph was sold as a slave to Egypt. What happened to all the animals that Jacob brought from the house of Laban? Where were they? Where were they? Hunger was killing them in the land. Him and his brothers need to be coming to Egypt, come and buy grain. So what happened to everything he got for where he went? He just wasted his years. He had an encounter with God and he lost the encounter with God. He had an opportunity with God and he lost the opportunity with God. Because religion will not allow him to think straight. All he saw was temple. All he saw was tithe. All he saw was vows and promises. He never saw God to obey God and follow God. Brethren, has God spoken to you and all you are saying is religion aspect of it? Some of us, God has come to meet you and said, I want to use you. And the next thing you are telling God is that, yes, I will build churches for you. Was that what God is saying? That was the problem I had. I mean, God met me way back. The first time God will speak to me about wanting to use me, I was a teenager. That was in 1994. When God met, April 1994. I saw the flash. I saw a vision on my way home. And I thought, okay. Because then I was in church and they were saying we should work for God. So I thought it's working for God. So I became an instrumentalist, a choir master, a choir everything. I became everything you can become in the choir. Then later I saw God speaking clearly again. For many years God did not speak until 2010. 2009, 2010, and God kept warning me, I want to use you, and I was saying, okay, let me make the money. So I was more busy in the office looking for how to become the youngest general manager in a multinational company, and I was spending millions organizing programs in the church. I was breaking records for Christ. And to me, I believe I was working for God. My religion was the one answering God. God was not asking me for that. God said, I want you. Then God killed everything in 2011. I struggled. I came up again by 2012. By 2013, I was already a group CFO somewhere else. And I was being a big star. And God is saying, I want to use you. I want to use you. And I said, okay. So I started spending more money. Paying tithe and spending huge money in the church and doing things. And that was not what God was asking for. He wasn't asking for sacrifice. He was asking for obedience. By 2014, everything flopped. And I went back to God and said, God, I'm sorry, I will serve you. And by 2014 ending again, I started picking up by 2015. By 2016, I was high. Then I decided, then I went back to the same old thing, because religion is powerful. I worship in a place where we are taught, and we are so indoctrinated about sacrifice. Working for God means, working in the church, paying tithe, paying offering, sowing crazy seed, this and that. And that was not what God was asking for. He was seeking for a life that obeys Him. Simple, a life that obeys Him. He needed me to give my life to Him, but I was giving sacrifices and everything to Him. By 2016, He scattered everything. Everything became scattered. By 2017, I think I found myself in prison. It was the day I was about to enter prison that I now had a revelation, that I now understood that God is the one behind it. And say, it's either you give your life to me and begin to serve me, or I destroy this life. I hand it all for you. And that's what happened to Jacob also. At the end of his life, at the end of the journey, by the time he came back, an angel came to wrestle with him. An angel wrestled with him till they wounded him and, they touched his bones and caused an hollow there and a dislocation. It was after that Jacob's head cleared up and Jacob said, okay, please bless me. I thought I was blessed. I thought I had blessings. So it means that all the cattle, the wives and children, the lambs and everything he brought from Laban's house was not a blessing. Those were not blessings. He was now looking for blessing. Why are you now looking for blessing? When God came down from heaven, opened a channel between you and him and blessed you. Why didn't you accept the blessing that time? No. Religion made you see that all you saw was a temple, was a place to worship God and a place to be making vows. Many of us are still falling for that trick of the devil till today. We are still falling for that trick of the devil till today. I told us that the Old Testament is a place for us to learn a lot of lessons, especially many lessons of how not to serve God, because they were blind, they didn't see things right. And it's so painful that those of us that have Christ, we are still copying them. Many of us, when Christ called you and said, I need you to work for me, all you saw was, I need you to pay money for me. That's all you saw. Now, it's not your fault. That was what you spent your years in church learning. Give, so see. That's all they've been talking about. Some of us, God said, I want to use you, so you went to collect a parish to become parish pastor. Did Christ send you there? Was that what he asked of you? Was that a specific instruction he gave you? Many of us have left the instructions of Jesus and we're just doing things so wrongly. That's why he has just kept quiet and has cut off many of us. And unfortunately, I discovered that the more high up a person is, the more far away they are from Christ. The testimonies of lives that change, that we get to hear many times in our ministry, comes from brothers and sisters. It's been very difficult to hear the life of a pastor change. It's been very difficult. In my years of ministry, if we are to talk about brothers and sisters who their lives have changed, my fingers cannot count them, who we have heard testimonies. But if we are to talk about pastors, wives of pastors, whose lives have changed, they are not up to my one hand. They are not up to the fingers in one hand. So, the more deep and eye-naked you are into religion, the more difficult it is for Christ to reach out to many of us. So many of us already have a picture of what you want God to say to you. So when God is speaking, you are interpreting it according to your own views. And thereby we miss out what God is saying. Many times we miss out what God is saying. Just like Jacob missed it and wasted his years. Between when Jacob left and came back, that was like 21 years. Wasted. It took an angel coming to trouble him. You see, some of us, the reason why you are empty today is because God has decided to empty you. Since you are deaf and you don't want to hear him, he has decided to play what he did with me, empty you. It was in 2017 that I finally came to the understanding. I think that day I was sitting in the court. And I was wondering, what am I doing in the court? What am I doing in this court? What am I doing here? Why am I here? I was looking at the judge. I was looking at the lawyers. And I was like, so what am I doing here? And God said, do you want me to take care of this problem for you? I said, yes, Lord. I'm tired. He said, our discussion of long time, the discussion I've been discussing with you since you were a teenager, that you not understand. Will you serve me now? I said, yes, Lord. He said, no problem. Okay. Open a WhatsApp group. So I pick up my phone right there in court, at the back, so that the orderly will not see me. I brought out my phone. I went to WhatsApp. I was about to create a group. I asked him, God, okay, what name should I call it? He said, the Holy Spirit Prayer House. So I went to the Holy Spirit Prayer House. Okay. I added myself. I didn't even have any other person. I only added my other number to it. And I waited. But that was when I now got to understand. It was in the process that God now made me understand that it is not the work, it is my life. My life must be given to Him. Or else, it's now, the Holy Spirit prayer was now like a condition again. That, come, every work you will do here, I will reject it if your life is not okay with it. That was the first time I started reading the Bible, little by little, to begin to understand Christ. Then I discovered that it's my life. Obedience is what He has been talking of. Since I was a teenager, all He has been calling me for was obedience. But I thought, since our church is a Bible-believing church, our church is a happening church, one of the fastest growing religious centers in the world. So I'll go and serve God there. And that was not what God is sending me to. That was not what He was telling me. Some of us, God has sent you to certain men, not so that you could worship them. He just wanted them to do their bit in your life, and He will pass you up to the next place. But you got there, and you said, this is where I'm going to die. And you converted such to your Father in the Lord. And God just said, go there. I need you to learn one or two things. Sometimes, God has sent you to a man of God, not to learn the good things, but so that you can see the mistakes. But you got there, and you never went to ask God again, God, I'm now here, what should I learn? You begin to copy them. That's why God has blocked many people's doors. I know of some families, God has given both husband and wife instructions and duties, and they have failed to do it, and God has decided, you are not going anywhere. You are not going to move anywhere. Until you do my own, He's the God of heaven and earth. It's those kind of work that Satan likes, because you can't bind him. You see, if God is with you and Satan comes, he knows that all you need to say is, Satan, I resist you, and that whole duty is spoiled. But when God Himself turns His back at you, Satan is very happy. That's when He will sit down on that case. Many of us have allowed Him to sit down on our case. We have given Satan high table. We have served him cold drink. We have converted him to a special guest in our lives, simply because God has spoken, but we have not heard God. We have interpreted God as we love, and because we are not following God as He spoke, God has turned His back at us and looks as if things have come to a standstill. It's not because God cannot move. It's not because God's promises cannot come to pass. It's because you have not fulfilled your part of the promise. So, brethren, I know God is speaking clearly and plainly to us. And one thing I love God is that God does not just come to us and start cracking jokes. He speaks plainly to us. And I've seen a few of us listen to these messages and decide to go and obey God. And for such lives, I have always seen testimonies. There are people that God has been speaking for years, and they are yet to move. And everything remains standstill, and God will not move until they go back to get instruction from God and begin to obey God. Some of us will have noticed that when you have come to meet us for prayers, many times we always tell you, please, let us pray again. What is God saying? Sometimes when God speaks to me and tells me something concerning you, I will tell you to go and pray yourself. Let God speak to you, so that you will not say, Brother Femi said. No, so that you will be able to say, God told me. Brethren, what has God said to you in the past that you have given wrong interpretation? I'm willing, I'm open by the grace of God, that even after this message, contact us. Let's look at where you wrote it together. Maybe you've been giving it the wrong meaning all this while. Let's look at it. Let another eye look at it. Let's look at it together. What did God say? What exactly did God say? And what have you been doing? Have you been doing something totally different from what God has said? Have you been following a life totally different from what God is expecting of you? Such a life cannot reap the promises of God. Like God told us before, God do not finance what He does not authorize. God do not finance a project He does not authorize. No. Many times the devil comes to finance it. God did not call you to be a pastor, and you are a pastor. and you think you are succeeding. Please, I want you to know, Satan is the one bringing you members. I am 100% sure about that. Satan is the one bringing you members. And that's why if you look at your life, despite the fact that you are a pastor, you are going lesser than what God asked you to be. Your relationship with God is bastardized. God didn't call you. He didn't give you that job. Satan has employed you. You are an employee of Satan. Oh, this might sound, what are you saying? What are you saying? But it's simple. Where God is absent, Satan is present. There is no vacuum in heaven. If God did not call you, then Satan called you. Oh, it was our senior pastor that said he has appointed us as the head usher. Did God call you? Is it a job that God gave you? I would rather you go to God and seek God's face. This job did you come? Is this part of the promises? Is it part of the instructions you gave me? Was this what you sent me for? Do you know how many times pastors have met me to tell me that God has told them that I am going to be a parish pastor? And they've told me many times, thank God I was stubborn then. I wasn't really hearing from God, but I was just stubborn. I was just running away because I knew myself. Imagine if I was a pastor then. Half of the choir would be my girlfriends. That's if I would not start dating the executive of the good women. And any day that money is short hand like this, we'll probably take money from church money. I wasn't born again. I was good in singing. Oh, when it comes to singing, we will sing. We will tear the whole auditorium. Everywhere will scatter. There's a way I will sing and speak in tongues. Everybody will start speaking in tongues. It's a act. I know how to do it. That's why today when you see people singing, I'm not moved. People are singing, they are doing it, say God is coming now. Which God? I'm not moved. I've been a choir member for a long time. I know how we do it. If I want you all to be crying in an auditorium, I know the kind of voice I will bring out. I know the kind of songs I will sing. Just get a good keyboardist and get some good sound system and sing some songs. Then, in the middle of the song, I will stop. Then begin to say some words. Cool. The words will be coming together with the beat. Brethren, you'll be rolling on the floor. You'll be crying. You'll be weeping yourself. You'll be shouting. Everybody will be speaking in tongues. There are some certain tongues you will speak in the middle of the song that will rhyme with the note of the keyboard. Everywhere will scatter. They will say the presence of God has come down. I beg. It is skill. It's a solid skill. Sorry? It's a skill. It's a skill that we have gotten over time. It's something that we have gotten used to. It has nothing to do with the spirituality of the presence of God. It's just that I wasn't interested in making money for me then. I could have made so much money when we were making waves then. So I was very busy. And everybody saw me when I come to the altar to preach. Then I don't preach these kind of messages. Where did I get these messages from? I don't know Christ like this. But we know the messages we preach. Messages about grace, about favor, about increase. We preach such fine messages. Everybody will be jumping up. People will stand up after service and come and meet me and say, Brother Femi, I love that your message. I am encouraged in the Lord. I am encouraged. Oh, no, I'm encouraged. Oh, I see God moving in my life. Everybody is congratulating me. A sinner. A very good sinner. Before some young apostles started teaching mysteries today, we've been teaching mysteries then. The mysteries of grace. And Christ was not with us. We were not born again. But we have been invited to churches to come and preach. Sometimes I travel to go and preach. And there are certain words that we use. Certain things that we do. There's a certain way how we God will help us. I'm telling some of us that are into this, you know what you are doing. God has not called you. And you go back to God and get it sorted out. Because when I want God to move in a service, I go with songs. Me, I just finished sleeping with my girlfriend, committing adultery the night before. I will come to the church. I will target a song, sing it. The whole atmosphere will change. People will start manifesting. Music has power. They will start manifesting. I will be speaking in tongues, blank tongues on the altar. Then I will bring out a message. And people will say, oh, they are blessed. I'm blessed. And some new youth will come and meet me and say, Brother Femi, please come and minister in our church. So the next Sunday again, I have another invitation to come and minister in another church. A person that was never born again. A person that is a sinner. But I perfected the act. But I knew I was into sin, and I knew there was a problem for what I was doing, so I was reducing it. I was not really financing it or pushing it. I wasn't selling myself. So when I see people do it today, and I see, especially young ministers, even the old ones have learned how to do it now. We know the words to say, we know the prophecies to give, we know everything falls into place. And I see them doing it, and I just smile. I've did this many years ago. I think over 10 years ago. We have done this. Thank God that Satan did not blow us. By now I will be one super popular man of God. I will have my strings of girlfriends because that's a lifestyle I was used to. And I will continue the lying in the altar. And everybody will be shouting, oh, what a popular man of God. And probably by now, because of popularity, we will have reduced the number of girlfriends and, patched it and changed our style. But we'll still continue the old. And Christ will be absent. I'm talking this way to those of us who are into these things. You are standing on the altar, you are preaching, and God did not send you. It will be dangerous, It will be very dangerous. Thank God that Christ met me along the way. Thank God that He decided to deal with me. Honestly, thank God He dealt with me. Do you want to wait till He deals with you? I finished my own. I landed in prison from CFO to prison O. But thank God, at that point, He spoke to me again, a loving Father, and I heard Him, and I decided to follow Him. And since then, we started learning fresh at the feet of Jesus, and that's why all these ovations. We've collected it in the past. It doesn't pay us. It doesn't mean that we are Christians. So we're not more interested in it. So, brethren, I've used my own life as an example to let you know that you could be outside the will of God totally and yet you be successful. No, even with this generation, Satan prospers ministers that are outside His will faster than those that are inside the will of God. Why? Because Jesus told us that the world hates Him. So that man of God who is going to speak the truth, the world will not like him. The world will not like. They will not give him opportunity to go. They will keep fighting him. But that man of God that speaks what everybody wants to hear, he knows the right words to say, and is playing a game on the altar, he will get promotion quickly. Quickly! He will be promoted fast. Are you one of us? Or are you one of them? What has God spoken to you? Have you accepted what Jesus has said? Are you playing games with God? He said He wants you. You are giving Him your leg. He says, be clean before me. He said, okay. God said I should be clean. So I'll be wearing clean clothes now, but I'll still be putting all kinds of dirty things on my body. Was that what He asked of you? Can you go back to the instruction He gave you, the promises He gave you when you were a baby, when you were young, when you were a teenager, when you were a youth? The things He said, can you go back to it now? Can you go back to read it? That was where you mixed it up. That's where everything got missing. That's where everything got scattered. Can you go back now to where you met with Christ? Can you go back to when you were a teenager, when you were a youth, when you gave your life to Jesus Christ? What decisions and what discussions did God have with you? What were the promises He gave you? What are the things He said? What are the things He's expecting of you that you have neglected? I know a woman that she told me when she met Christ, Christ told her not to wear trousers. He told her plainly, I've called you now, you are not wearing trousers. That's what God told her. Then she became successful. Wealth came. Then she started. Actually, when I was speaking to her, she started wearing trousers. And then she was telling me that, my own trousers are not so tight. They are not so tight. They are more, they are more. And I told her, but what God is saying, I should tell you that He has told you not to wear these things. She said, yes, God actually did so, But times have changed, and I shook my head. I shook my head. Those of us that when you met with Christ, then He told you not to use earrings, He told you not to use makeup. As a man, He told you never to put hands on funny deals. He told you never to have a girlfriend, never to have extramarital affairs. There were clear instructions He gave you in those days. And what has happened to them? You have dropped them all. Just like Jacob, you became religionist. You became a tither, an offering giver, a seed sower. You became a chairman of building committee. Was that what He's asking of you? He asked for your life. He asked for specific things. Have you given Him? Some of us, God told us, I want you to finance my ministries. You never went back to ask Him which one. You look for the where you have big pastors and fine churches, or you went to look for small churches that doesn't have money. You are deciding yourself, who sent you? Have you gone back to Him? What has God told you that you have neglected? That is where the promise fulfillment is hidden in. That's why you have had a delay in the fulfillment of the full promises of God. God is not the one at fault. It is you that is delaying God. Can we take this matter to God in prayers? Can we sort this matter with God tonight? I don't know where God has spoken to you. I don't know how He has spoken to you. But can you take this matter to God in prayers tonight? God bless you.